So let's begin our edit. This, as I said, is our opening graphic. So I'm going to hit play, and the opening graphic plays. There we go. Bang. And at about 4 seconds, let's go up to 5 seconds. That's where I want to trim it. And so I'm going to hit B, my blade tool, and that will automatically cut any selected clip. So I select the back of this and I hit X to erase it. And if I zoom in, you can see that I can actually get that information back if I wanted to, but I don't. That's basically where I want to trim my cut. Now I'm going to bring in my intro blurb, and so I'm going to drag this down to the timeline. My playhead is where I need it to be. I'm going to bring this down, and already I've got audio above and video below. So I'm going to begin to organize this in a way that is more conducive to an edit, and that is I'm going to bring this clip up and make sure that it snaps to frame 125. And this audio clip I kind of want below any video that's going on, so I'm going to leave it there for now. Bring my graphic up to channel 4 so that if I wanted to do a transition, I'd sort of have graphic to video, audio, and then any music track under there. Yep, okay, this works for me. And let's play this. So here is an example of a 3D model. Okay, that's me talking, and I'm going to take this. Okay, let's hit the plus key to zoom in. And I'm going to select both these clips, Shift Select, and I'm going to hit B so that I can take this bit of strip and erase it. And now I'm going to click and Shift Select and hit G for grab because that's the Blender one. Now, you can map that back to A if you wanted to. And I'm just going to bring that up to our edit point here. So when I scrub, I can see that that will bring in the video straight away. Okay, Shift Z, I can zoom in to my project. And let's take a look at the end of this clip. Okay, and that's sort of where I want it to end. B for blade, and then you're editing away. You're going to select that and select that. Now I want to import my image sequence. Now remember what I said, you can't exactly go up to your stills menu and select everything and drag it down, unfortunately. What you have to do is on your timeline, Shift A to bring up our add menu, image, and now I'm going to bring in my wireframe. So select all of those. There it is. And I'm going to drag this up to frame 520. And then I'm going to go Shift A again. Image, navigate to my AO file. Drag that up. And finally, Shift A, image, my rendered file. I'm going to drag that up there. Now I want all of these together, so if I was to hit play, you can see that that would play through the animation. It's slowing down because I've got a lot of information on here now. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to trim these, and then I'm going to put transition between the trims. But before I do that, I'm just going to put in my outro. So let's navigate back to video in our bin and drag our outro. Drag that over here. And already you can sort of see, just by telling what frame it is, that our mark here, the 30-second mark, or 750 frames, is just a little bit too short. How do we fix this? Well, because we've got our scene panel up here, I can change my end frame here to, let's see, if I was to grab this and move it, I can see that it ends on 970. So I can just type in 970 there, and you can see now that my entire sequence goes from 1 to 970. Shift back, and I can go ahead and just play through that sequence if I wanted to. I'm going to do one more thing, of course, and I'm going to add an audio track. So let's go up to audio. Let's grab that audio. Oh, first, why don't we just go Shift back to frame 1, bring our audio down to channel 0. There it is. And when I click on it, you can see that there is an audio waveform. I'm going to go Shift right arrow, and that takes us to the back of our project. And I'm going to split this clip by hitting B, select that, and delete it using my X key. So now we've got all of the media that we need inside this strip, and I can actually shuttle through this with by just going right click and drag. And yeah, everything I want is right there. Okay. One last thing, I think I just want this to finish on the animation. And let's just take this to 35 seconds. And now we can definitely split this by selecting and split. Select X to do that. And at 35 seconds, what's the frame on that? 875, something like that. 874, 875. Let's go 875. I like a nice round number. So I guess the next point of business is adding a few transitions, and this is the fun bit. So let's start at the beginning. Let's bring our playhead all the way over here. Now I'm going to zoom in here, and you can zoom by pressing your plus key on your keyboard, or zoom out by hitting your minus key, and you can grab this neat bar down here, and you can sort of drag this left and right. And I'm going to go to this edit point right here by hitting my down arrow, and we're going to put a transition right here. So what we want to do is go from this to that in a fun and interesting way. So what I'm going to do is drag this out. We go to where we begin talking. We can sort of see that with the audio. So there. Now, if you ever want to mute something, so I don't really want to hear this music as I'm shuffling through, you can just click on that. And in your properties panel over here, you can always just hit the I, which also works for audio. So if I was to now go, right, that audio is now muted. But let's go ahead and put this transition in. Transitions work in an interesting way. You have to select the strips in a particular order. And so this case, I'm going to select this, and I'm going to go Shift, select that. Now I'm going to hit Shift A, and under Effects Strip, here are all my transitions. And what would be a really nice one, a wipe. I always like a good wipe. So let's go Wipe, and there our wipe strip shows up. And you'll notice something very particular about this, and that is that it begins right where this clip begins, right, where the cut point is, and ends where this clip ends. And if I was to scrub, you can see that it goes from the top to the bottom, and that is because if I say delete that strip and I selected this strip first and then selected that and did the wipe, you're going to get the reverse. Okay, so the order in which you select strips is important. Obviously, when you're playing these strips, whatever is on top will show up first, and then whatever is underneath will show up next. But with transitions, they're a little bit, they're sort of independent of that. I'm going to hit wipe again, so we've got our wipe in there. Now, with that strip selected, I'm going to come over here to my properties panel, and here's where you can change some of the strip properties. So let's have a look here where it says Effect Strip. Transition type, single. Yeah, but let's take a look at some of the others. There's the clock wipe. So that will do one of those, right? There is the iris, which means that, you know, a circle comes out. I kind of like that one. I think I'm going to go with that eventually. But let's have a look at the other one. The double, which sort of splits it from the center. And these are the default settings, by the way. So single just goes top to bottom. Beyond that transition type, some of these options change. See, you can see that if I went from single, which has an angle, to clock wipe, the angle disappears because the angle is not necessary for the clock wipe. What does the angle do? The angle basically changes where you want to wipe. So if you want a nice sort of diagonal Star Warsy type wipe, so let's say we went -30, that's quite nice actually. So if we were to scrub along there, that's quite a nice one. We've also got a blur width, which is really handy, so that you can actually have a very soft wipe, right? So that looks kind of nice, especially with that halftone pen. I'm going to leave this at maybe a 0.4, but you can also change the direction. So an in or an out will basically just reverse the angle, right? So I'm going to go with out over here. And double, again, it retains some of that information, but does sort of a nice type of thing there. Now, when you go to, say, iris, the blur width is preserved. And if we did an in, right, so that's an iris in, which isn't a great one for revealing it. This is sort of like the better way of revealing something like that. But you know what? I think I sold myself on this single wipe down. So that's going to be our first transition there. Shift Z, what next? Let's do a straight cut here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut from our wireframe, which is on the bottom here, to our AO, to our final, which is right on the top. So let's just grab that and let's just drag that over here. And I'm going to do this sort of roughly thirds. It doesn't have to be exact, but basically what I want to do is go that to that to that. And I want to find transitions to work between the three. I'm going to select by clicking, Shift select, G for grab, and I'm going to just drag straight down. Now if it's red, it won't snap, but if it's white, bang, that'll be fine. That's because I just want to cut point right there, right? So right clicking and dragging. Now, I'm going to show you what happens when I select this layer and then shift select that and then add an effect strip. In this case, if we just do a basic cross, that's actually just a crossfade, right? Now notice that this crossfade lasts as long as these two strips overlap, which happens to be for the duration of this strip. You see, there's no handles on the crossfade here. What you have to do is grab this handle and drag back to dictate where that crossfade lives. So let's drag that back to here so that we get a nice crossfade like that. And we'll do the same here, but first what we're going to do is drag this back over here. Select, shift select, effect strip, crossfade, and now we've got these lovely two crossfades that give us the effect that we wanted, which is wireframe to AO to final render. And finally, we want to transition to this. And the way I want to do that is by dragging this out a little bit. So if I hit L to play, you'll see that that last frame is preserved. And I'm going to go click here and click here. Now, the reason I'm doing this and I'm not moving this is to show you how this transition thing works, even though you've got, you know, one clip on top of another. Let's drag this up. I still have to select this and then select that. Shift A, effect strip, and let's get in our wipe again, 0.4. We want to go -30, and oh, actually, we've got an angle here which sort of corresponds with that. I think it's something more along the lines of something like a -20-ish, or maybe even a -18. Yeah, that's about right. Right? And so then that wipe down occurs there. All right? But as I said, I don't really like having all these strips, so I'm going to drag this back down to where it lives. The wipe kind of travels with it, and you'll see that the wipe actually now exists underneath that, which sort of doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So I'm just going to drag that back up there. So I can see one area which is going to be slightly problematic, and that is this area here, because what I want to do is I want to create a compound strip, these three, and their transitions, but this transition is going to be going from this meta strip into this outro. So in order to save ourselves a little bit of grief, I'm going to click on that and I'm going to delete this with the X key, and I'm going to drag this up here. Now I'm going to select, shift select, shift select, shift select, and shift select. And then I'm going to go Control G, which is the Blender group function. Control G. And we get this, a meta strip, which I can now drag down to where it has to go. Let's zoom in here and take a look at it. Now, it looks a little bit different from our other strips, and that is because you can actually see inside it, it's got a representation of our three strips and our two transitions. And if we were to drag over them, you'll see that it actually works. Okay, pretty cool. Now, if we don't like what we did, we can always go Alt-G and ungroup that. But I don't want to do that, so I'm going to undo that function and keep it down. But we can also toggle inside this strip by hitting Tab. So we select it and hit Tab, and you'll notice that all of the other things disappear because it almost exists in its own setting. So if we hit tab again, we go out to the larger master file, but we sort of tab into that. And so we can actually say, okay, I want to adjust some of those transitions like that, make them a little bit longer, something like that. And when we tab out, those are updated. And so that is a really clever way of just nesting compositions, which means that I can now bring this up to this channel here, and I can maybe bring this effect strip down, sorry, this clip to this channel here, and now I can sort of reapply this transition. Now, the reason that transitions like this won't copy and paste over is because they are tied to the clips that they're transitioning between. So what we've got to do is we've got to go here, select, Shift A, effect strip, wipe, was it? Yep. And then, yeah, so this is the sort of annoying part of doing transitions in Blender. So we're going to do one final thing, and that is we are going to look at our music here. So selecting this, I'm going to bring in my eye here so that if I now scrub, let's volume a little bit. And we can already see, you can see that sometimes the audio will go out of sync. So if you want to sort of see it, this is why I brought this window here. Remember the timeline window? And where it says no sync, which by default, we can change that to AV sync. And so now, this should always say stay in sync, but there's a couple of other things we can do. And so if we hit this menu item playback, we can do things like frame dropping. Now, frame dropping means that if we say have this on and we play and it begins to chug, the sync actually keeps up. And so that's a little bit of troubleshooting that you can do to fix problems like that. So that's really, really clever. And this is why we needed that timeline bar up there, because these menu items only appear in that particular window. Clicking playback, there's one more thing I want to do, and that is audio scrubbing. The reason I want to enable audio scrubbing is that when I right click, it scrubs audio as I go along. So if there's a beat that you're listening for, you can even go and scrub by using your left arrow, right arrow, shift up, shift down, or even back to cut points with your down and up arrows. If it's annoying, you can always just go to playback and disable audio scrubbing. And now we don't hear anything. I'm just going to enable it here because the next thing we're going to do will require us to scrub some audio. And that is we're going to do a little bit of audio ducking. So over here in our properties panel, I'm going to switch this over to our graph editor, because what we're going to do now is we're going to do some audio ducking, as I've said. First off, we want to change the overall volume of this. It's quite loud. The volume is at 1. It doesn't show volume in decibels, and so we have to sort of treat this 1 as sort of like an 100%. So maybe I want this at maybe 0.4 to begin with. And I'm going to put my playhead around about here. Let's turn this down so you can hear me and not the scrubbing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a keyframe. Now, the way we can do this is to go to Volume and hit the I key, which is the Insert Keyframe button. And all of a sudden, we've got volume and we've got a keyframe here at frame 124. Now we're going to shuffle along here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to where I begin to talk. And I'm going to bring the volume right down to 0, and I'm going to hit the I key again. And now we've got this nice gradient for the volume. So if we go ahead and listen, let's turn this up a little bit. So here is an example. And we've ducked the audio away. What if I wanted just to hear a little bit of audio there? We can go back to the keyframe by hitting Alt down, which is the shortcut key which I assigned. It isn't down or up, it's Alt. So we can actually go to the keyframe and we can adjust it. So let's say we wanted 0.02 and hit the I key. Let's do that and have a listen. So here is an example of a 3D model And I can hear that right under my voice there. Now, it gets a little bit loud here, as you can sort of see in the waveform. So now I'm going to take it to this point where I stop talking. I'm going to insert another keyframe by mousing over my volume key and hit I. Okay, now if I select that, you'll see the graph. If you zoom out, you can always just go view all, or you can just pinch and zoom or scroll and zoom. Okay, and then I can go to the beginning of my meta strip, type in 0.4, hit the I key to make another keyframe, and then I want to do a 2-second fade out. And so it ends on 35, so go scrub back to 33 there. Gonna mouse over my volume, hit I, and then go shift, right arrow, and type in 0. Yep, 0, because it's going to be a fade out. And that should be my completed video. So let's have a quick review here. We get music coming in, we get graphic, looking nice. Me talking, there's a bit of audio. Let's skip ahead. And then we get our nice pan around. And another one. And out. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you edit in Blender. Now the final step is, how do you get your video out? Well, let's go to our graph editor and let's go back to our properties tab. And let's sort of review here. It's sort of nice having it there. The first thing you want to do is go down to your output. Okay. Now you're going to click on the open file browser, and you're going to navigate to my video project. Renders high res is where I want it. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to type in here. I'm going to call this Toon Render Example. The file type is dictated by your output settings. In this case, it's QuickTime H.264, so it's going to be a .mov. The audio codec is set to something that is going to work just fine. And all I got to do is hit animation. Now, as I do that, you'll notice that one of these windows turns into your render view. Now, if you don't like how this looks, no matter, there's a way that you can fix this. You'll notice that it renders in the UV image editor. So I'm going to switch this back to video sequence. It is rendering, but you need to, if you want to see it, all you do is come up to your preview window and switch that over to UV image editor and make sure that render result is selected. And you can sort of sit back and watch as this video basically renders out. Now, if you've got a few effects like I do, a few transitions, a bit of audio, it's going to take a little while to render. And so once it hits 100%, we go over to our renders panel where we told it to go. And in high res, we've got the title, and we've got a frame number 001 to 0875. And we can sort of preview that. We can even sort of shuttle through it. And there's a transition there that's looking quite good. And then we've got some music playing. We've got this nice render. It's looking great. And we've got a little outro. That looks fantastic. I'm really happy with that. The size isn't too bad. It's about 420 meg for a 35-second HD clip. Isn't bad. And as you can see, like the H.264 type of render is actually pretty good quality. So this is something that can go straight up to YouTube for all your various purposes. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Did you enjoy this tutorial? You can now support me on Patreon. Just $1 a month ensures that I can keep putting quality content like this right here on YouTube. But for a couple of bucks extra, you can gain access to exclusive videos that will teach you how to model, shade, and render comic and animation ready assets and backgrounds for your own personal projects. I've also released a modular set library which will be updated with new set pieces each and every month. So what are you waiting for? Go check it out.